Pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Rebecca Silber. Rebecca is the annual giving officer for Zones 30 and 31, with over a decade of experience in nonprofit fundraising, board engagement, volunteer management, and event planning. She cares deeply about connecting donors and volunteers to the causes they are most passionate about. Previously, Rebecca has worked at Big Brothers Big Sisters of Metropolitan Chicago, Chicago Symphony Orchestra, the Peggy Notebear Nature Museum in Chicago, and the Hippodrome State Theater in Gainesville, Florida. Born and raised in Miami, Florida, Rebecca has spent the last 12 years in Chicago, falling in love with the people, culture, architecture, and culinary offerings of the Midwest, but she's still learning to tolerate winter. Most recently, Rebecca served as a donor relations specialist. In that role, she worked with Arch Clump Society members to help recognize their significant generosity and dedication to the Rotary Foundation. Rebecca feels strongly about building bridges between Rotarians and the Foundation so they can experience a deep sense of fulfillment and accomplishment through their generosity and service. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Dave. I'm so excited to be here, especially hearing about your 100-year anniversary coming up tomorrow. Congratulations. And also hearing about Avery Gates and all of her accomplishments. My goodness, I feel like I need to, after I sign off, go do a lot more with my life. So thank you all so much for having me, and congratulations to you and to Avery. Yes, so as Dave mentioned, my name is Rebecca Silber. I am Annual Giving Officer for Zones 30 and 31. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Let's see if I can make this work. Can you all see that? Awesome, thank you. Great, yes, and so yes, I am Annual Giving Officer for Zones 30 and 31. If you're not familiar with that area, you can see it's from you all up in 6630 in Ohio. I think you and 6650, I need to figure out who's the most easterly that I work with, maybe 6780, we'll see. But yeah, down to Alabama, over to Louisiana, up through all of Missouri, and then little bits of Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas as well. And if you are not aware that these two zones together have affectionately labeled themselves the Heart of America. So if you ever hear about Heart to Heart and Heart of America, that's kind of, the project that's been put together by these two zones, but also the name of these two zones as well. So before I begin, I do want to thank you all. You're an incredibly dedicated club. I know you know that, but I did see that last year you received both the Every Rotarian Every Year banner and the 100% Foundation Giving banner as well. So I always like to start by saying thank you. And yes, I've been with Rotary for over 2 years now, and I love meeting with you all. Actually, I didn't usually, or before pandemic, I wasn't meeting with clubs, generally speaking. So while of course there are new challenges that have come up with working from home, one of my greatest pleasures is I get to meet with clubs now, because obviously I don't have to travel, physically to get to you. So being here electronically has really been a pleasure. So thank you for having me. And so when I talk to groups like yours, especially today, Giving Tuesday, and especially having wrapped up Foundation Month in November, I do so to encourage, of course, giving to the foundation, but I also would like to acknowledge during this time that I understand that it's a difficult time for all of us. So mostly what I like to talk about is how the Rotary Foundation is here to help you in your goals to make an impact in your communities. So to that end, the Rotary Foundation's mission is to enable Rotarians like you to advance world understanding, goodwill, and peace through the improvement of health, the support of education, and the alleviation of poverty. And so when I look at this mission, I like to focus most on those two words, enable Rotarians. Really, the foundation is here to support the work that you all are doing locally in 6630, as well as across the world. And in order to do that, we raise funds for the initiatives that are important to you and to your community in Kent. And so in support of the mission, we do have 6 areas of focus. These are the overarching causes that we all can focus on, if you will. And they are providing clean water, sanitation and hygiene, fighting disease, supporting education, saving mothers and children, promoting peace, and growing local economies. And so you won't see on here quite yet. We also will have that 7th area of focus coming on July 1, and that's supporting the environment. And I like to talk about the areas of focus because I think it is incredible that we have identified areas for us all to work together to, really, again, focus on. These areas of focus guide everything we do. And it makes the Rotary Foundation and the work that you all are doing even more impactful because it is so focused. And today I'd like you to just take a moment and think about your area of focus, the cause that you're most passionate about. What keeps you engaged in your Rotary work? I know many of you are longtime members, and some of you might be just beginning in your Rotary journey, if you will. So what keeps you coming back to your Rotary work? What's going to keep you coming back if you're new? And yeah, really think about how you as a Rotarian can use your unique position to make the world a better place. Obviously, when you give to the foundation, we hope you're giving passionately, through your own heart. But hopefully we'll also be able to link that kind of passion with something that really means a lot to you. So that's why we have these areas of focus. And that's definitely why I like to take a moment to just have you kind of think about what might be most important to you. And so the Rotary Foundation has a whole host of ways that, of course, you can give. And there's all kinds of things that we do with those funds. So when thinking of partnering with the foundation, it's important to think of where you want to make your dollars, do that work. And so on here, I have most of the ways that you can give to the foundation. And those are through annual fund share, which is the primary source of funding for a broad range of local and international activities. And hopefully you're aware of the SHARE program. That's the program by which funds are converted into district designated funds over a 3-year process. And then there's the World Fund. The World Fund supports grants and program opportunities available to all Rotary districts. And an important purpose of the World Fund is to support global grants. The World Fund is funded, again, largely in part by that annual fund share program through that 3-year cycle. There's the Polio Plus Fund. Polio eradication continues to be Rotary's top philanthropic priority. And hopefully you're aware, but I love talking about it. Since the 1980s, when Rotary began its fight against polio, the incidence of polio has decreased by 99.9%. And we've immunized over 2.5 billion, that's billion with a B, children against the polio virus. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about polio eradication in a slide coming up. We have the Disaster Response Fund, and this is a fairly new fund over the last few years. And that fund raises money to use in grants to meet immediate needs due to natural disasters, usually. Now, when COVID-19 began, the trustees did make an allowance so that COVID-19 related projects could be funded through disaster response funds. I know 6630 I think got something like 10,000 gowns, if I'm not mistaken, PPE gowns that were distributed all over your district. So I know Akron had, of course, a great partnership with the Children's Hospital there, and so they were able to get some gowns there, and it's just all over 6630. So I really appreciate you all, making sure that those important items got to your community. Another thing I like to talk about with COVID-19 disaster response grants is I was really kind of floored to see that, of course, there's PPE. There was tons of PPE given out through those funds. But another initiative that a lot of districts took on was getting money to their local food banks. Of course, many people are experiencing great insecurity with food right now. And so I really thought it was quite really heartwarming to see Rotarians across the world really pull together to get food to their food banks and to the people in their communities. And then there's the endowment fund, which ensures the long-term viability of the foundation's grants and programs. And gifts to the endowment fund are invested in perpetuity, and earnings from those investments are used to support vital Rotary projects. And then oftentimes when Rotarians are looking into their estate plans and decide to include the foundation in those plans, they do include gifts to the endowment fund as a way to ensure that their values as Rotarians are made especially known to their family and friends. So I hope that you see that wherever your passions may lie, whatever that area of focus is that you have, that there's likely a way that you could give to the Rotary Foundation to really make your dollars go to work in a way that you think is, most appropriate. So yes, and the biggest thing here to take away is we're here really to help you with your goals through your generosity for your service. And then I added this slide fairly late, actually. We recently had all of our 2019-20 numbers finalized. Some of you may have seen an email today about Giving Tuesday that quotes some of these numbers as well. But really, I wanted to include these just to see, so you can see kind of where we were at last year and give you a little information about where we are this year already. So in 2019-20, which was our last Rotary year that's already wrapped up, we did have 1,359 global grants across the world. And the top countries that received global grant funds were India, Taiwan, the Philippines, Thailand, and Brazil. And then just to give you a little bit more information, year to date already, we have approved 995 global grants. And in comparison, last year this time, we had approved 444. So we've already approved double the amount of grants this time that we did last year. And what I think that really especially speaks to is how passionate Rotarians have been this year in the face of great crisis to make sure that their projects are continuing to happen in ways, of course, that are safe. But you all have really continued to really take up the banner for your communities and for the global communities that you work with to make sure that people are not being left in the dark. So thank you for that. And then I also love to talk about district grants. So that's, those grants that are funded by those DDF dollars through the annual fund, generally speaking. And so last year there were 490 district grants. Total funding was $35 million for those grants. And the top country receiving district grants, and this is always surprising to me, is the United States of America with 141 grants. And I bring this up because I know some Rotarians think, oh, I'm giving to the Rotary Foundation and my dollars are just going far away for these initiatives that are not close to home. And really, resoundingly, especially in the United States, the answer to that is actually no, your dollars really are staying right in your communities. And so, yeah, we had 141 grants in the United States. And then the next largest number of district grants was actually in Japan with 34. So quite a difference there. And then, so I do want to talk about, there was $24 million in grant funding through global grants for COVID-19 related projects. So that's in addition to that the disaster response grants I was talking about before. And disaster response grants for COVID-19 was over $7 million. And hundreds of districts applied for those and were granted those. So just a kind of a state of affairs of that 2019-2020 Rotary year for some grant funding that I think is super important to keep in mind. And so yes, as we go on, I always like to talk about individual recognition. Before I started working at Rotary, this was kind of a completely unknown area to me. I've worked at plenty of organizations where you give your funds, you get your tax receipt and your thank yous, and that's kind of it. And maybe you get some events that you get to go to here or there. But in Rotary, we love our pins and our chevrons and our banners, of course, and I love to talk about them. So there are a few different societies and fellowships and things of that nature that we like to recognize. And so the first one is Paul Harris Fellow, and that's for donors who reach a cumulative giving of $1,000 or more to some certain funds, or do receive 1,000 recognition points. That's that first Paul Harris Fellow level, and then it goes up from there. There's the Paul Harris Society, which is where donors commit to give at the $1,000 level per year or more. And then there's the Bequest Society, and that is for when a donor makes a commitment for future gifts of $10,000 or more. That's when they're in the Bequest Society. There's major donors, and that's when a donor's cumulative giving reaches that $10,000 or more. They get a lovely crystal, all types of lovely perks. And then Arch Clump Society, I have to talk about because they are the reason I started my work with Rotary. I honestly was very ignorant to all the work you all are doing and have been doing for 100 years in y'all's cases. Yeah, so Arch Clump Society, I was brought on, I was recruited from the symphony orchestra to work on donor events for the AKS, as we call it at Rotary. And honestly, if you ever get a chance to go to an Arch Clump Society recognition event, when we have conventions again, they're pretty amazing to sit through and hear all of the great stories of people, honestly, some who've started from very little and very, meager beginnings to really make it their life's mission to become Arch Clump Society members. And they talk all about their reasons why. And so I absolutely recommend, if you can ever join one of those events, to go to one of those events and see the passion that is in these members. And then finally, there's the Legacy Society, which began July 1 of 2019. And that is for those who have committed to giving $1 million or more to the endowment. So of course, a very, very large commitment. So I only bring up these different recognition avenues because of course, Rotary loves giving away all kinds of pins and the chevron you see for PHS on the left, and of course, all these great things. But really what it boils down to is that we are incredibly thankful every single day for your generosity and for your service. So we have those pins and we hope you wear them with pride, but mostly we hope you wear them knowing that we're saying thank you. And I already talked a little bit about club recognition banners because you all have achieved these, and I really do appreciate you for getting together and making your goals so that you know that you want to get together and give at this level. And so yes, so you have these banners. I'm not going to go much into them, but I do appreciate you all just banding together again and making it known to each other and to the greater Rotary world that it's important to you to support the foundation and to make sure that you're, putting those dollars to work again in your community and around the world. And so yes, so polio eradication, of course, continues to be Rotary's #1 priority. So as you can see in the top left of this, this slide, there were quite a few endemic countries that were in existence when we started this, this effort back in the 1980s. So that's that top left kind of world map. And then you'll see in the bottom right, there are only 2 countries currently where polio is endemic. And those countries are Afghanistan and Pakistan. And I had the great privilege very recently of making that little Nigeria, I'm hoping you can see my cursor, the country of Nigeria until very recently was still considered an endemic country for the wild polio virus. And I was able to turn that to that beautiful gray color very recently, as both Nigeria and the entire African continent was certified wild polio virus free. And so I'd love to share this slide. Actually, I just checked. So as of last week, the total number of wild polio virus cases reported was 137. And to give you kind of a comparison point, the entire number for the last year was 165, and we're in December. So hopefully we'll keep it kind of to that 130s number as we close out the year, so that of course we're making gains in that way. But I bring this up because really the great effort of Rotarians, and of course all of our partners in this fight, those efforts have really paid off, of course. There are all kinds of people in this world who will never know the fear of being paralyzed or, of course, this deadly disease because of the work of Rotarians like you. And the other reason I like to bring up the polio eradication efforts of Rotary and our partners in this time is because of all of the work that has already been done in the face of disease prevention because of your dollars. So think of all of the healthcare workers who were funded by Rotary scholarships. Think of all of the health centers that were built and continue to be maintained because of Rotary dollars. I really do believe that because of Rotarians, we are not seeing as bad. Of course, it's very bad right now, COVID-19, but I do think it would be much worse if we didn't have these systems in place that Rotary and Rotarians have put in place. And the other thing I like to talk about is polio surveillance has also been used for COVID-19 surveillance. So again, those are dollars that have been given and used and continue to do some really great work, whether we know it or not, but we do know it. So thank you. And then as I kind of wrap up my presentation, I do like to talk about staying connected. So first and foremost, thank you for bringing your meetings online. Obviously, meeting in person is preferable, but while it's not safe to do so in large numbers now, We just are really appreciative that you all continue to be leaders in your community and say, we're continuing to do our work, we're continuing to meet as Rotarians, and you're really just, I think it's a great way to show your community that you can still do these things safely. So thank you. And then I'm a big proponent of myrotary.org. It's a great way to go on, sign on, check what your donor total giving is. There's a way to do that there. But also just make sure that you are signed on when you're making contributions, because when you're giving online, which currently is the most effective way to give, mail's very slow, so mailing in contributions can be a little bit, it takes a little longer now. Yes, so I absolutely recommend to sign in to myrotary.org so you can make sure to give your contribution in a quick way. And so all of your points are being, accumulated if, you're getting points for those. And then there's Rotary Direct, which your Rotary Foundation district chair, district coordinator, Jim Lechko, had let me know that it's a goal of his this year to really up the Rotary Direct enrollment. And so Rotary Direct, for those who don't know, is the recurring giving program through Rotary. And you can give monthly, you can give quarterly, you can give yearly. And it's a great way to just stay on track for your giving goals for the foundation. If you're trying to reach that Paul Harris Society level, or if you're trying to reach a Paul Harris Fellow level, Rotary Direct's a really easy way to do that. And then once you're in there, if you ever want to go online and change the amount that you're giving, I've done that. I've checked on my credit card information after having, unfortunately, some fraud there. But it's really easy to go on and update all kinds of things through myrotary.org. And then we've got a new tool I hope you're aware of called Raise for Rotary. And that's a really great platform for doing all kinds of fundraisers for graduations, anniversaries, weddings, if you will, and of course for memorials as well. So you can kind of get on Raise for Rotary and do some fundraisers for your families, your friends, and your networks. And then today, Giving Tuesday. So it's not just a Rotary initiative, it's an initiative by many, many, many organizations, but it's really just a way to celebrate that giving spirit as we roll into the holidays, and we've unfortunately left Thanksgiving behind. I'm still eating some of my leftovers. But yes, just really rallying on one specific day to celebrate kind of that giving spirit. So hopefully you'll celebrate with us today through a contribution if you are so inclined. And then Rotary Support Center. So I cannot speak highly enough of my colleagues who work through the Rotary Support Center. They're all working from home like the rest of us, and they're able to process contributions. They're also able to answer any Rotary question you might have. And if they can't answer that question, they can get you in contact with somebody who can. So really cannot speak highly enough of my Rotary Support Center colleagues. And then finally, I just wanted to talk a little bit before I end about Charity Navigator. So we at Rotary Foundation have received a 4-star rating, which is the highest that is awarded for 12 consecutive years. And so that actually puts us in the top 1% of organizations that are rated by Charity Navigator, because we've had this rating for more than 10 years. That's that top 1% of organizations that have had that rating for 10 years. Of course, now we've continued to have it for 12. And so, yes, I'd love to speak about Charity Navigator and our 4-star rating, because I think it really speaks to the fact that if you choose to contribute your funds to the Rotary Foundation, which most, if not all of you have, thank you. Really what happens with your dollars is we spend them in a transparent way and in a way that really is, mission driven and really is in line with hopefully your wishes for your dollars. So I love to talk about our Charity Navigator rating. It's something we're very proud of, and I'm hoping that this year, and I'm assuming this year, we'll continue to have that 4-star rating. So as I finish up, I just like to take a moment and say, of course, thank you again. Really not just for us at the Rotary Foundation, but also thank you for continuing to really have that Rotary spirit. You're sticking in for one another. I know you are. You're, buoying each other up in a time of great hardship. But also, I know you all are in your communities really doing some great work. So in the spirit of, the holidays, I just wanted to say, I know that the Kent community, I know 6630 is better for having each of you in it. So thank you for your service. Thank you for generosity. And if I have a few moments, I'm very happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Rebecca. Do we have any questions? I've got one to kind of lead things off. You mentioned 141 districts in the United States have gotten grants. Any idea how many districts there are in the US?
Ooh, I don't know. And actually, that's something easily found. I don't have that number at my fingertips, but I can very easily find it. Yes.
Just curious. Any other questions? Looks like Lang, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. My question is, Rebecca, excellent presentation. In your annual planning, do you have a goal that you're striving to reach each year, like for the annual fund, for example?
We absolutely do. So last year, it was 140 million for the annual fund. And this year we did bring it down a little bit to, I believe it's 137 million. And so that's the annual fund worldwide. And so really, but then we rely on each of you and your clubs and districts to come up with goals as well. And sometimes those don't match, but really what happens is we kind of look at everybody's goals together and try to inform that into our annual fund goal. But yeah, last year, the goal for giving total, including annual fund, polio plus other funds and endowment was about 400 million. And we were able to raise 408 total million last year. So that was our goal last year. I am suffering from the fact that we're not in the office anymore because we had our goal up on this really big whiteboard that I walked by every morning. And so now I don't do that every day. I don't see our goals. I don't see the polio numbers as much. So I really have to keep an eye on our goals. But yeah, I don't have them all at my fingertips right now like I usually do. I should put up a sign in my office with our goals so I can always have them memorized.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Rebecca, we have a tradition in our club that we always have someone respond to our speaker. And today that's going to be Bill Childers.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, President Randy, and thank you, Rebecca, for your presentation. And a quick shout out to Avery Gates and Justin and Carrie for the Student of the Month. That was great. Rebecca, you're in a great profession, one that I've been in as well for a number of years. So happy Giving Tuesday, and encourage everybody to think about supporting our Rotary Foundation, International Foundation. We do have some standards and our club has managed to hit the numbers so that, you know, we have an average giving of $100, and I'd encourage everybody to think about that this year. You know, I think it's also kind of what you showed us about ending polio is particularly resonant, you know, as we're all in a new pandemic, and we can't wait to see that happen as vaccinations emerge and people throughout the world get access to that. I think today's a great day for your presentation when you know, it's not every day that our president and President Randy Smith did a great job announcing, you know, our former member Ken Wirtz's bequest, both to our club's foundation and to Rotary International. I mean, that, you know, happens once every few years, and that's a great, you know, Ken was a great member of our club, and we all miss him. Rebecca, thanks for the info and the data. I would like to acknowledge our club, Paul Harris Fellows. We really appreciate the people's strong giving in that. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge our current club member and district governor-elect Larry Lohman and his efforts to get district grants back here for us to work on both internationally and throughout our nation and throughout our district to make this a better world. So best wishes, happy holidays, and thanks, Rebecca, for your presentation today.
Thanks, Bill. And again, thank you, Rebecca. Great job getting us up to date on where Rotary National stands and the amount of money that is distributed every year. We appreciate the information. And again, congratulations to Avery and her mom and dad. And with that, we are ended. Thank you all. See you next week.